Let's have everybody introduce themselves so I kind of know who's what. There should be some microphones right there. Let's start all the way at the end. Just introduce yourself real quick, and we'll go all the way down the line. Go ahead.
How's it going, everybody? My name's Michael Dressler. I'm the head of success at Zero Gravity Labs, where we have built the decentralized AI operating system that is comprised of a high throughput settlement layer, decentralized storage, computation, and data availability. Here, I'll actually pass this way first.
Okay. Hi, I'm Ran. I'm from Pharos. I'm leading DeFi there. Pharos is an inclusive financial layer 1, which is for the RWA and RealFi. We launched our testnet last year, and we're hopefully we can launch our mainnet soon. And the executive team and also the builders for the Pharos team were from Ant Group, which is one of the largest fintech company, who is the mother company of the Alipay. So we're also launching our incubator program this month with Hack VC, with Faction VC, Draper Dragon, and Centrifuge. So if you are a builder, an LP, or investor, feel free to join us. Yeah, thank you.
Hey everybody, good morning. My name's Ullrich. I'm with Nirvana Labs. Nirvana specializes in high performance compute and also managed dedicated nodes. So we're a little bit different than a traditional RPC provider because with Nirvana you can spin up a high performance VM on-prem with a dedicated node, which gives you like super low latency and can be used for a lot of different DeFi applications and trading applications. So.
Hi, everybody. I'm Brandon Kramer, or BK. I'm with The Graph. I lead product marketing there. So The Graph is a blockchain, or we focus on blockchain data solutions largely for Web3 developers, AI, and enterprise. While The Graph has been in EVM for about 7 years, I think dating back to 2019, we've also been serving Solana users with a high-performance streaming solution called Substreams, and more recently a token API for Solana as well. So doing that for the past few years, and yeah, excited to be here today.
Use that one.
Hi, I'm Jason Romero. I work at Eco. I'm the head of business development there. Eco is a stablecoin orchestration protocol, and the goal and vision of it is to be the best way to move money on chain.
Hey everyone, my name is Chunda. I'm one of the co-founders of Paxos Labs, the newest initiative out of the Paxos ecosystem. Similar to Paxos, we focus primarily on building out enterprise infrastructure with an emphasis for us on on-chain infrastructure for things like DeFi empowerment, on-chain asset movement, and on-chain tokenization.
Awesome. First question is for Ron. If I mispronounce it, please correct me. When you say infrastructure, or when we refer to infrastructure, what part is the product? Liquidity, execution, risk, custody, data, or tooling?
Yeah, it's a great question. Actually, it's all above. I think the DeFi primitives or DeFi infrastructure include all, like including DEX, lending, LSD, RRT, and also since we are focusing on the RWA, it's also including the RWA protocols, the liquidators, and definitely the liquidity providers. I think from an end user's perspective, all they need is actually an access to the yields, no matter it's a high yields or low yields with high risk or low risk, right? So basically what we are trying to explore is to build a more sophisticated DeFi infrastructure, which might be a vault, where user can deposit their stable coins into a vault, and the risk curator can select the assets on behalf of the users, and they can do the risk analysis, the asset selection, the NAV calculation, the due diligence, and also managing all the fund flows. So with a simple vault infra, the users can be able to get access to the RWA assets and also be able to loop their assets in the lending protocols to generate the yields from not only the DeFi protocols but also the RWA, CFI, and all kinds of the yields opportunities. I think this is my understanding of the DeFi infra.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. The next question is it Mike Dressler?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. What is the biggest unsolved problem in Solana DeFi right now? Is it fragmentation, MEV, UX, risk controls, liquidity, or something else you think?
Yeah,
Thoughts?
well, when it comes down to it, I don't think it's just fragmentation or MEV. I think it more focuses on a sort of intelligent coordination layer at the end of the day. As we move more into the future here, and agentic economies really, they really sort of push more transaction volume. There needs to be a transparent way for a lot of these, agents to flow. Wallets are not just going to be a way of, maintaining sort of distribution or, really gaining value. It's this idea that you need to have a way of really bridging the gap between specific you really need to be able to have a lot of these agent economies have specific coordination so that, liquidity can be dynamic, fragmentation can be managed. A lot of times users won't be the main focus of, comparing APR or making sure that liquidity is dynamically flowing from protocol to protocol. So I really think at the end of the day, there needs to be an appropriate coordination layer. And at Zero G, we provide sort of that infrastructure to make sure that all of this can be done in a full stack approach, not only having that high throughput settlement, but being able to have the individual decentralized storage that's needed to encrypt and provide, safety and security to these transactions, having high speed compute for inference, and then also data availability so that we could track agent state and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jason, same question. What do you want me to re-ask it?
I'm not Jason.
Oh, that's Jason. Yeah. But I meant to ask it for. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I'm in the middle of
Same question. I'll ask it to you. What is the biggest unsolved problem on Solana right now?
Yeah, I think Solana has at least the base level of DeFi for what it needs right now. There's not really much else you need to add to it. You can swap, you can do perpetuals, you can do lending. There's some RWA infrastructure coming. There's some compliance and privacy infrastructure coming. I think one of the things that Solana is really going to have to fight through is distribution. So if you think about like Robinhood has their chain coming. Robinhood already has distribution with their trading app, and they're going to use the chain as a way to own part of the vertical and have more like positive reflexive flywheel into the vertical. So for example, 24/7 settlement, more exposure to different assets, better banking infrastructure so they don't have to pay fees. They're going to leverage the chain in a very unique way to sort of accelerate their business that they already have. Solana has some distribution, like with Phantom and some of these other wallets, but I think the biggest thing that Solana is really going to face in the near future is like, how can they maintain and attract liquidity? They've done some of that with stable coins. How are they going to focus on, fighting against a lot of these bigger powers like Tempo and these other things? So I think we're moving away from kind of like this DeFi battle of, the interest rates are better here or there. And I think we're going to move more into kind of a zone of, okay, is my infrastructure better for distribution? And can I make sure that I capture and retain and reduce the amount or mitigate the amount of conversion that's going to Tempo? Because Tempo is going to come out hot, right, with Stripe. Robinhood's going to come out hot with their application, with distribution out of the box. So these are things that I think the Solana ecosystem is going to have to face. Right now, it's been in a little bit of like a nice bubble because you've had like Pump.Fun and some of these other things sort of fueling a lot of that activity. But pretty soon, I think that's really it's not a missing piece, but it's going to be a very important piece for Solana moving forward to see how it reacts within this environment when there's going to be a lot more networks that are going to be powered by much bigger entities and with much better distribution.
Yeah. Perfect. So is it Brandon?
I'm Brandon.
Oh man, I'll get it right one of these times. What do users actually pay for in DeFi infrastructure, and where are teams still mispricing value?
Sure. Yeah. So I think the baseline answer is definitely reliability and trust, whether it be for users or for those that are maintaining infrastructure. But like speaking more directly to like data infrastructure, specifically in Solana, I think it's about speed and scalability. As I talk to developers in the Solana ecosystem, speed is always a top of mind. And so if you're moving into these scenarios where you really prioritize speed and you need that, it doesn't only translate to like real-time data and how fast your wallet might update, having the trust of users to see those changes happening instantly so they can trust the value and the UX of Solana, but also in terms of like the engineering costs over time, right? If you're using a more traditional like method, like even APIs or RPCs, it can sometimes take like, weeks to sync these nodes, and it just like leads to wasted cycles or not being able to build out new features and things of that nature. With like the streaming solution that we offer with Substreams, you're cutting down from like weeks down to days to be able to, or even hours in some cases, to be able to build out and sync the infrastructure that you need. And what's cool is you can kind of even build other data products on top of that and have trust to be able to, build out a specific token API product or a particular data product that you might need for specific metrics or speaking to specific institutions. So to me, that's the value. The thing that's undervalued right now is the scalability of it, of just like how those performance benefits will translate to reduced engineering costs and ultimately translate to what institutions really need. They're going to be able to, in some cases, these institutions are asking for like every single chain and all the positions that for real world assets on every single chain. Obviously, that's going to take a huge amount of infrastructure or effort to build out that infrastructure. So keeping the scalability in mind and be able to be prepared to kind of build that out is incredibly important, and ultimately what, to answer your question, what we're paying for when we build out that infrastructure.
Got it, for sure. Eric?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Here's a question for you that kind of segues from his. Are we building too many protocols and not enough distribution layers, or is it the opposite?
So distribution layer being like a wallet, I'm guessing. So, who am I to say whether we have enough or not? I think it's like the market will tell us if builders want to invest their time building more wallets. I think that we're really lucky to have Phantom, to be honest, because it's like amazing UX. And so it's great that they spent the time to build that, for us, and it's for all of our benefit. I might personally, would I jump to another wallet? It would have to have some pretty compelling reasons around that. And maybe that would be worth the plunge if somebody wanted to build that. I think that'd be very interesting to have a competitor to Phantom. So yeah, we can always use more, right? But it's the market that's going to decide who's worth it to invest their time in that. But yeah, for a wallet, what would get me to bounce to another wallet? Maybe something to do with security features, privacy features, maybe easier access to yield opportunities. But Phantom already has a lot of great options there. And then protocols, do we need more protocols? It's kind of the same thing. You tell me, would you, what's going to make you jump to another protocol? The defining thing, I think a lot of it has to do with liquidity in the space, right? How much liquidity is there? And then how's that going to improve the spreads? How's that going to improve your pricing? So how do we get more liquidity into the Solana ecosystem versus competitive ecosystems like were mentioned, Robinhood is going to be, trying to extract liquidity, et cetera. So yeah, does that mean we have more protocols or interesting new protocols that have new mechanisms that will make it interesting for more people to bring their liquidity to Solana? So, yeah, we need more and better of both, I guess, and that would be great to attract more users and more liquidity to the ecosystem.
So you mentioned privacy is maybe one possibility to move. Explain exactly maybe what that means in depth. Are we just talking PII? Or are we just talking my transaction info? Maybe elaborate a little bit.
For sure, transaction info. Anytime I send money to a friend, they know my wallet now, and they literally could just plug that into Explorer and know my entire financial history on that wallet. and then everything that I've connected to. So that's not great at all. Yeah, I don't know if anyone uses Venmo, but Venmo has this feed and it tells me like who's paying other people. I always thought that's super weird. And that's like how Solana is by default right now. I think it's kind of a problem.
Yeah. So Mike, same question to you. Do you think do we have too many protocols and not enough infrastructure, or is it the opposite?
Well, when it comes down to it, Solana has everything that you need under the sun, from dexes to perps to, yield aggregators to lending and borrowing. At the end of the day, I think it still circles back to this coordinated distribution or coordinated like agent distribution. AI is a huge focal point. We are now at a full intersection of AI connectivity and, Web3 infrastructure. And I think there needs to be more of this sort of, as I alluded to before, this intelligent coordination fabric that allows for optimized routing of liquidity, that allows for intent-based systems to enhance user experience. As my friend here was alluding to, Phantom is a phenomenal UX and UI, but at the end of the day, there are improvements when it comes to sub-second transaction times, when it comes to this privacy. So I think we really need to, look at this in the sense of there can always be more apps, but how can we optimize the overall user experience and abstract some of the complexities that retail, may see or may prevent them from participating. I totally agree with you when it comes to like the whole Venmo feed where, I'm always sending a private transaction because, having that public display of my financial movement creates this transparency into your own personal spending that isn't really something that the masses, I think, want. And that is also something we need to focus on when it comes to, crypto. Put a wallet address in, you can see everything that somebody's done. So how can we still have the same security, the same usability, the same speed, but now having intelligent coordination that may mask some of this, some of this data from being put out into the world, but also ensuring that it's secure. So when it comes down to it, I really think more coordination, intelligent coordination fabric is something that we need to focus on in the future.
Yeah, I agree. All right, Chunda. Okay. RWA is often described as the bridge between traditional finance and DeFi. What does that look like in practical terms to you?
The idea of RWA is that, all right, we can take and tokenize these pre-existing financial vehicles or financial instruments that exist in traditional finance venues and then enable them to access the underlying benefits of DeFi. So it's the easy sentence to say, but what does that actually mean in practice? So what are the benefits of DeFi? Well, you get instant settlement. You get composability, and composability is the ability to basically route stepwise multiple different actions together between different counterparties without requiring permission. And then you get a larger access to global liquidity, right? And so when you think about the perspective of RWA, you can look at it from the perspective of two different counterparties. One is an institution, the issuer of the RWA, and two is from the user, the purchaser of the RWA, right? So let's start from the purchaser perspective, because I'm sure that's the majority of us here. As a purchaser of an RWA, you care about what things you could do on-chain that you couldn't do off-chain. So let's say, for example, you went and purchased a stock. Opening up a securities back line of credit in traditional finance is, I'm sure for anyone who's gone through the hassle of doing so, a pain in the ass, to speak frankly. And so if you go through that process of, all right, what would that actually look like on chain? Well, I could just go permissionlessly through my wallet to a Camino or a Juplin, and I could go and borrow against that asset. And I can go take those stable coins and then do what? I could provide liquidity, I could trade on exchange, and I can do all that in a matter of minutes. When you think about the amount of time, effort, approvals that would take for you as a user to take a stock and then go and access liquidity against it and deploy it in traditional financial venues, that complexity completely explodes. And you think about this value proposition from an issuer perspective, you realize multiple things. One, issuers can now offer all of these product benefits without having to build them out themselves. So if I'm Fidelity, JP Morgan, BlackRock, Franklin Templeton, et cetera, instead of having to drag someone along and, assign a wealth manager or a financial advisor for you to kind of like hold your hand through all the things you could do with my product and all these third-party financial institutions I work with, I can just give you this token and you're already equipped with the knowledge and capabilities to go out and facilitate all those activities without having to go through me as an intermediary. And secondly, this enables the expansion of global markets. So traditionally, if you were a USFI, the cost and expenditure and time and labor and resources and risk of going to a global market to try to launch one of these products is immense. We're talking to the tune of 9 to 10 figures of investment in order to try to get the requisite licensing, to build boots on the ground, to build distribution. Now you can go and issue an asset and just find a distribution partner in that region. And then now all of a sudden, you open yourself up to a new global market. And so when we talk about RWA Find the benefits, it's global expansion and distribution for issuers. And then for users, it's about being able to live the richest, most fulfilling financial experience you want all at your fingertips without having to go through a whole bunch of third-party intermediaries, which are going to extract fees and costs from you.
Yeah, I agree. Personally, I deal with too many I get third-party fatigue for sure. All right, this question is for both Ron and Jason. So let's start with Ron. Where do you expect consolidation? DEX, perps, lending, liquid staking, bridges, or data providers?
So I think the consolidation will definitely happen. Let's take RWA as an example, right? So I think for example, the AMM v3, v4 model might not be the best choice for RWAs. So we're actually looking for some other options like maybe RFQs or order book DEXs. And one of the reasons is that the price feed of the RWAs are different from other crypto native tokens, right? So for example, we will calculate the NAV of the private credit or the money market funds or some stock funds. And then we will tell Chainlink or Pith, what's the price of it. And then they will basically do the price fit for a certain other types of DEX. So basically, I think the Oracle and DEX, they will consolidate in some way. And also for the lending protocols, if we want to use, let's say, Centrifuge, they have issued a credit funds like ACRED. If they want to use ACRED as in collateral and to borrow USDC, they need to liquidate the ACRED, right? Maybe they cannot liquidate it in a normal DEX. So in that way, the lending protocol need to consolidate with another types of liquidator. There are some protocols like Fission and also like Mystic. They're building some auction sort of way to liquidate the RWA assets. So I think basically the lending protocol, they may need to find another place to liquidate their collaterals. And for the bridges, I think it's mainly for the capital inflow from our as a public chain ourselves. We try to attract other types of crypto native assets like WBTC, WTH, or other assets issued on other chains to our chain. So basically, we also like the bridged assets need to find a place to trade, right? So I think all these kind of DeFi primitives need to consolidate in a certain way. So this is my opinion on this.
Okay. Jason, do you have? Oh, yeah, you do. Okay.
So I think your question is like, what's going to consolidate? I think all of it has consolidated on Solana for quite some time. Solana doesn't have any public incentives right now, so a lot of the protocols that are still alive and kicking either they're well funded enough, they are somewhat net positive in revenue, or they have at least some capital to keep moving, or they've sort of owned different part of the verticals, like Jupiter, for example. Jupiter is like, okay, I have an aggregate space, I want to go into kind of like this DEX and this lend, yada, yada, yada. So I think you already have consolidation there. And then you also have consolidation within the bridge space. Bridging is largely unprofitable on like a lot of different metrics, and a lot of people are sort of loss leading and subsidizing it. So a lot of intent protocols, it's very unprofitable, and eventually you're just going to burn cash to the point where you can't sustain it anymore. So you already have some consolidation on that end as well. So I think like really, I think the more interesting thing that's going to happen in the Solana ecosystem, and it's going to be broader as well, is more like a consolidation on stablecoins. So I think right now stablecoins are quite hot. You see a lot of people being like, I have a Fidelity stable, and I have a this stable, and I have a that stable. I think a lot of people are over-indexing on just creating stables and under-indexing on the actual utility of the stable. Creating a stable for each individual application is different, whether it's like user retention, a different revenue stream, potentially ease of access into that revenue stream, such as like with RWA-Fi. So I think what's going to happen, and Paxos did this as well, right? That's why they launched the USDG piece, is that growing stablecoins is extremely expensive. Trying to create liquidity is extremely expensive. Trying to create utility for stables is extremely expensive. Look at what PayPal is largely like, yes, it has billions of dollars, but it was very expensive for them to do that. And so I think you're going to see a consolidation on that end. You're going to see a consolidation on companies and entities coming in, trying to launch something. They're going to see that it doesn't work in maybe like 6 months to a year, or they go through the licensing game that Paxos went through already. And so you're just going to see this sort of like ebb and flow, in my opinion, in terms of those types of assets, which might be RWA-Fi, depending on how you want to categorize it, but I think it's more just I'm talking about it broadly in the stablecoin space. But in terms of what you said, to circle back, the different protocols and the types of things, I think we've already seen that consolidation. You might see a little bit more, but I think it's fairly stable now.
Okay, we're going to do one last question for Eric, Brandon, and Chunda. If you could mandate one standard across Solana DeFi by the end of the year, what would it be and why?
All right, so mandating standards is what I heard, right?
Any standard, protocol, whatever.
So I don't like mandating things in decentralized protocols at all. Like I don't really like that idea too much, but there's certain things that make sense when you're in free markets that can encourage like trade and growth, and that's like you have to be able to trust things, trust your counterparty, and then also when it comes to like Solana or DeFi in general, like regulatory reasons would cause me to say, okay, yeah, let's put some standards in place so we can bring more money into the ecosystem. And I think so both of those things, if you look at the track record of like what are like the actual standards that have been in place and been in motion over the last few years in Solana, have been around like those are the two main themes, like compliance for regulatory. And so there's been some like token related standards that have helped open up regulatory pathways for compliance, and then also trust, like formal verification. And I think there's a proposal out right now from Tolly that's centered around formal verification, meaning like that you trust that the contract or the protocol that you're interacting with is actually the same thing as the open source code. So yeah, those are the two things.
So from a data infrastructure perspective, the thing that I'm most interested in is creating kind of like a standardized data schema that ultimately leads to more interoperability. Mainly in Web3, we're finding competing, this protocol, that protocol, and that leads to differentiation in how you formulate your protocol and the data that comes from that. But the reality is, as institutions come, the regulation that is kind of put in place on them requires them to be more interoperable. interoperable. For instance, like if you look at an organization like the DTCC, they process like $5.3 quadrillion of assets every year. They need an interoperable data schema. They don't care about different chains and different protocols and their uniqueness. They need everything to kind of match and be, very easy for them to process and map at any given time. And so we're a far cry away from that right now, right? We want to be inclusive of all the different protocols and all the different chains, but we need a way for that to all work together. So how that happens, I think, is pretty challenging, given that all of us are, to an extent, competing with each other. So it requires a lot of coordination for how that will happen, both from data providers as well as different protocols and chains. So it's quite an undertaking. I think that'll happen over the next 3 to 5 years.
I'm actually going to cheat a little bit and step outside of the context of Solana DeFi. But, we were talking a little bit earlier about distribution in the Solana ecosystem. And there's a good point I think there is to be made there. A lot of, you mentioned earlier, a lot of, clients of Paxos, right, like Robinhood, Stripe, they're all issuing their own chains. And really what that boils down to, for the most part, more than anything, it's less a technical piece. It's less a philosophy piece to them. I mean, at the end of the day, to enterprises, it's about economics, right? And I think the interesting thing that I would like to see Solana try to experiment with, which I have never seen a blockchain try to do before, but I think Solana has the right positioning to do so and the right tech to do so, is to experiment on what does revenue upside or sharing revenue with enterprises who drive value to Solana look like at the network level. If we could find a way to basically enable enterprises to share in the economics and the growth of Solana in proportion to the value they drive to a network like Solana, well, then you have a recipe for bringing some of the biggest enterprises on board, because here's the frank thing. Building chains is expensive, and maintaining chains is expensive, and getting integrations is expensive. So any type of way of decreasing that input cost for these enterprises while achieving the similar output from an economics perspective will really solve a lot of Solana's, I think, inherent friction around distribution to enterprise markets today.
Thank you very much, everyone.